In Torah with us again,
Good
and we're
morning.
going to morning. Good morning. And we're going to Proverbs 8. That should be page 736 if you're in the scriptures. If you're in another translation, then another page. Proverbs 8. Does not wisdom call, and understanding lift up her voice? On the top of the heights along the way, between the paths, she has taken her stand. Beside the gates leading to the city, at the entrance, she shouts, O men, I call to you, and my voice is to the Son of Men. You simple ones, understand insight, and you fools, be of understanding heart. Listen, for I speak noble words, and the opening of my lips is about straightness. For my mouth speaks truth, and wrongness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness, none of them twisted or crooked, all of them plain to him who understands, and straight to those who find knowledge. Accept my disguise, or accept my discipline, and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all delights are not comparable to her. I, wisdom, have dwelt with insight, and I find knowledge, foresight. The fear of Yahweh is to hate evil. I have hated pride and arrogance, and the evil way, and the perverse mouth. Counsel is mine, and sound wisdom. I am understanding, mightiness is mine. By me sovereigns reign, and rulers make righteous inscriptions. By me princes rule, and nobles, all the judges of the earth. I love those who love me, and those who earnestly seek me do find me. Riches and esteem are with me, enduring wealth and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold and fine gold, and my increase, and my increase than choice silver. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the midst of the paths of right ruling, to bestow substance on those who love me, and to fill their treasuries. Yahweh possesses me, and the beginning of his way, as the first of his works of old. I was set up ages ago at the first, before the earth ever was. When there was no depth, I was brought forth. When there was no spring heavy with water. Before mountains were sunk, before the hills, I was brought forth. Before he had made the earth and the fields, or the first dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he inscribed a circle on the face of the deep. When he set the clouds above. When he made the fountains of the deep strong. When he gave to the sea its law, so that the waters would not transgress his mouth. When he inscribed the foundations of the earth, then I was beside him, a master workman, and I was his delight day by day, rejoicing before him all the time, rejoicing in the world, his earth, and my delights were with the Son of Men. And now listen to me, you children, for blessed are they who guard my ways. Listen to discipline and become wise, and do not refuse it. Blessed is the man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the post of my doors. For whoever finds me shall find life, and obtain favor from Yahweh. But he who sins against me injures himself. All who hate me love death. So I'd say good chunk of that on what you were bringing up last week about connections to the Torah. I would say a good chunk of that would line up pretty well with creation for sure.
So Boy, I did a little digging last night.
Yeah.
So when I
Shalom,
started
Dana,
brief,
by the way. It's good
yeah,
to see you in the
okay.
chat.
So when I started kind of briefing through this last night, um,
Hmm.
so this proverb in like if you had like a King James version or something like that, um,
Hmm.
they usually kind of title chapters, if you will.
Hmm.
And the title of this one was like the excellence of wisdom.
Hmm.
Like this whole proverbs about wisdom. It's a personification of wisdom. Um, and so as I started briefing through it, I was like, cool. I'm gonna research wisdom, right?
Hmm.
I didn't do a super deep dive, but I dug a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, so something that I find always fun to do. There's this thing called the law first mentioned, right? And I
Hmm.
think many are familiar with that. But if you're not, it's this idea that if you are studying a topic
Hmm.
biblically, there's always a first mention of whatever you're studying. And that first mention usually kind of sets you down this path of like what to expect with whatever you're studying, right?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
the
Every
first
every time it
mention,
comes up, it's always going to be in reference to the first time it was mentioned.
correct. And so the first mention that I found of wisdom was actually Exodus 28. And it's verse 3, but I'm going to start from the beginning for a little context. So Deuteronomy 28, page
Deuteronomy
117.
or Exodus?
Exodus, sorry. I don't know where I'm getting Deuteronomy from.
No, you're
But
good. That's page 86 for those of us who are using the scriptures.
okay. And you bring near Aaron, your brother, and his sons with him from among the children of Israel for serving as priests to me. Aaron, Nahab, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar, the sons of Aaron. You shall make set apart garments for Aaron your brother, for esteem and for comeliness. And you speak to all the wise of heart, whom I have filled with the spirit of wisdom, for they shall make the garments of Aaron to set him apart, for him to serve as priest to me. So this is they're getting ready to build the tabernacle, and they're
Hmm.
establishing the priesthood.
Hmm.
And with that, they're calling upon these wise men to do some of these things.
Hmm.
So with that, gifted men, they
Hmm.
were gifted by Yah in their talents, and with their talents, Yah has produced wisdom. Right?
Hmm.
This wisdom, they're filled with what is referred to as the spirit of wisdom.
Hmm.
And interestingly, we get we get a brief notion as far where I got Deuteronomy from. I skipped ahead in my notes, but in Deuteronomy 34, we see that verbiage used again in reference to Joshua.
Hmm.
So Deuteronomy 34, page 224, it's roughly verse 9. And Yehoshua son of Nun was filled with the spirit of wisdom. For Moshe had laid his hands on him, and the children of Israel listened to him and did as Yahweh commanded Moshe.
Hmm.
So Moshe had been leading these people through the wilderness for all these generations to the
Hmm.
promised land. And now it was time that Moshe was laid to rest, right?
Hmm.
And so he needed to establish a new leader over the people so that they would be led into the promised land, take back over. And Yah had called out of the midst Joshua, who was
Hmm.
yet again this man filled with the spirit of wisdom, right? And interestingly too, Joshua feared Yah, and he was one of the 12 spies, right?
Hmm.
He was one of the 12 that one of the two that gave a good report, right? When they sent 12 spies to the land,
Hmm.
10 of them came back. They had a bad reports. Like, oh, there's giants in the land. We can't go there. They were fearful, right?
Mhm.
But Joshua and Caleb were like, nah, dude, we fear nothing but Elohim. Like, let's
Mhm.
go. And he ends up getting, established as leader over the children of Israel.
Mhm.
So the spirit of wisdom is getting brought up. Um, and you start to see this idea of like these men were fearing Yah.
Mhm.
So interestingly, if we go back to chapter 8 here in verse 13, the fear of Yah is to hate evil, uh, have hated pride and arrogance in the evil way in the perverse mouth.
Mhm.
Uh, so we're starting to build upon wisdom is this fear of Yah, and it has something to do with following Yah's ways and discerning away
Mhm.
from evil, right?
Well, I would also say it's Yahweh indwelling them with His Spirit, and so
hmm
it'd be indicative of the Ruach for sure.
And then so if you backtrack to Proverbs 2, chapter 6, you see that again. For Yahweh gives wisdom, out of his mouth comes knowledge and understanding.
Mhm.
Okay. So what comes out of his mouth? What is his word, right?
Mhm.
Um, and then also in 1 verse 7, the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline.
Mhm.
I think this all goes back to probably get a good understanding of this when you read verse 8 in Proverbs 8. All
Mhm.
the words of my mouth are in righteousness. And again, this is a personification of wisdom.
Mhm.
For my mouth speaks truth, and wrongness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness. What is
Mhm.
righteousness? We flip to Luke 1, verse 6. Blamelessly walking in the commands.
Mhm.
I think it all stems back to wisdom is the Torah. Torah is
Mhm.
wisdom, Yah's
Yeah.
word. And following his ways over our own ways or the ways of
Mhm.
the world is wisdom.
Mhm.
Which then you kind of go, I was jotting this down as we were reading. So then when you get to verse 19 here, my fruit is better than fine, or than gold, than fine gold, and my
Mhm.
increase than choice silver. So then I'm thinking, okay, well, if wisdom is the Torah, what are the fruits of the Torah? And that
Mhm.
points me to Deuteronomy 28, right? The blessings and the curses.
Mhm.
Fruits is like the, hey, do these things and you are blessed.
Mhm.
Um, and that about sums up about where I got with this. But
No,
it
you're
was
good,
in
dude. That's
dive.
that's a good dive. I like it.
And then another thing, one last thing that I kind of had jotted down here. Um, so if you go through like verse 34 to the end, blessed is the man who listens to me, watching
Mhm.
daily at my gates, waiting at the posts of my doors. For whoever finds me shall find life, and
Mhm.
obtain favor from Yahweh. But he who sins against me injures himself. All who hate me love death.
Mm.
So blessed is the man who listens to me, right?
Yeah.
Waiting at the post of my doors, and shall find life. And I feel like we've seen this. We've
Mhm.
seen this elsewhere, right? And if you go to Revelation 14:12, here's the influence of the saints, those who have a testimony of Yeshua as Messiah and guard the commands. So,
Mm.
for what it's worth, that's
For
that's
what
what I
that's
got.
worth. Okay. Hey, so we're dealing with some connections. So let's just hang out in 34 for a second for what
Okay.
that's worth. So gates and doors, and I'm pretty sure you know where I'm going with this. But on me. All right. For some reason, when I say Deuteronomy, I always think of the uh, being inside a movie gallery when I was like 11. And they'd be like, movie gallery. So I'm like, Deuteronomy. Gets through my head. So I am in Deuteronomy 6 is where I'm going to hit page 193, 192, 193, because I'm going to start on 192. And let's just have verse 34 of Proverbs 8 sticking in our head. Blessed is a man who listens to me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the post of my doors. So gates and doors. Let's just think about that for just a minute.
Yeah.
So Deuteronomy 6. And this is the command of the laws and the right rulings, that's interesting, which Yahweh, your Elohim, has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess, so that you fear Yahweh, your Elohim, to guard all of his laws and his commands, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the days of your life, and that your days be prolonged. And you shall hear, O Israel, and you shall guard to do, that it might be well with you, and that you increase greatly, as Yahweh your Elohim of your father or of your fathers has spoken to you, in the land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh your Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh your Elohim with all of your heart, with all of your being, and with all of your might. And these words, and that's capital words, which I am commanding you today, shall be in your heart, and you shall impress them upon your children, and you shall speak of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. Verse 9. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And it shall be that when Yahweh your Elohim brings you into the land which he swore to your father, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, and to Jacob, to give you great and good cities which you did not build, and the houses filled with all kinds of goods which you did not fill, and wells dug which you did not dig, vineyards and olive trees which you did not plant, and you shall eat and be satisfied. And that whole chapter continues, but verse 9, and you shall write them, what is them? The commands which I give you, that's further up in the passage, on your doorposts and on of your house and on your gates, writing the commands that Yahweh has given us. So traditionally, that has become a mezuzah that people write, Hear, O Israel, Yahweh Elohim, Yahweh is one. People will write that on a plaque or on a piece of metal or an inscription of some kind. I mean, there's people who literally engrave them into their doorposts. I've seen people as they were building their homes inscribe them onto the 2x4s that framed their doors, and I thought that was kind of cool. And then they will do the trim and cover up a piece, and then they'll inscribe them again over it so that it's like layers deep into their house, and I think that's cool. That being said, doors, posts, and gates, the law of Yahweh, his commands, it's what's written on them. So where is someone watching daily for wisdom? Where is someone waiting daily for wisdom? At the doorposts and at the gates. Just find that interesting. And what's on those? The law of Yahweh.
It's a good find.
Yeah, find that interesting.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, that's super cool. I don't know how I missed that. So.
Oh, well, dude, there's new stuff in this book every day when I open it. I'm just like, whoa, how was that not there?
I just would have thought, as I was kind of digging through that last night, that caught that. But
no, hey, dude, I'm telling you, there's new stuff in this every day. I like that you went back to the first mention of wisdom. If you had asked me where the first time wisdom shows up in the Torah, I wouldn't have guessed that one.
dude, I didn't even know. I had to find it. Because I was like, I don't know. I would almost think Genesis, right? Somewhere.
Yeah.
But it's crazy that
Well,
it was
and
everywhere.
according to what is it? Oh, verse
Um,
22 through what 30 or so.
mm-hmm.
Um, that yeah, wisdom was with Yahweh in the beginning, and I find it indicative that the spirit that you brought up of wisdom that was noted in um, where were you at? Exodus 28, 26.
Yeah, I do. Sure. Exodus 28 and then
Exodus
Deuteronomy 30.
28. So the spirit was noted as a spirit of wisdom. Um, there's other passages when they're talking about building the tabernacle, how a particular individual had been endowed by Yahweh's spirit, and that he would be shown things and what the heavenly courts had looked like. And when they were modeling the tabernacle, they were modeling it after what he had seen. And it's interesting that that dude's not Moses. It's a different dude who is just in their midst. It's like their chief craftsman that like is really, really good at taking what he has seen and turning it into something that he's made. Um, and I mean, you think about someone who's like really, really artistic that can just paint or draw or sketch something that is far beyond like what you ever knew was humanly possible. Like they could just see something and then like reproduce it or like show details in the way that they've reproduced it that you never would have even been able to emphasize. And I think of that like I know some painters who are just so talented at what they do. And they like we can both be looking at the same field, and if they were painting it, it looks better. It's not different, but it looks better than any picture someone could take. And it's just because they know how to make shadows and lighting work for them when they're reproducing that on canvas. Uh, and like they're both what you have seen and what they have preserved on canvas are works of art. Uh, And I think of that when I read those passages about Yahweh having endowed someone with his spirit, having seen things in the heavenly courts, and he's reproducing those on earth when he's making the tabernacle. Um, and I find it interesting that the verse you brought up is very, very similar in the sense that Yahweh has endowed these people with a spirit of
Mm.
wisdom. And yes, did that wisdom come through lived experience and like they've seen the BS and like, okay, yeah, we know the negative example of what not to do through that, and then we also know the yeah, know the positive example of having walked with Yah and His right rulings, His commands. So we like have some left and right limits here to actually work within. Um, that just the proximity of being near, they're endowed by His Holy Spirit, and that the connections of the wisdom and the right ruling through that's the ruach right there. So find that cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now you
And
brought up a really good point.
yeah, and with that too, it's like with those giftings and talents that they've been blessed with,
Mm,
right? Because like you were saying, yes, that a lot of that comes through life experience and
mhm,
such things, but like Yah has put them through the life that they have experienced for
mhm.
that purpose, right?
Yeah.
And with that, they're supposed to take that wisdom gathered,
Mhm,
which obviously comes from Yah. It's a spirit of wisdom which should come
mhm,
from Yah, right? And they're in service. And I think that's an implication for us, but it's like we should take the wisdom that we have
mhm,
gathered, that we've been blessed with, and we should be using it for service, which kind of, if you go forward, more into the
Mhm.
New Testament, looking at some of Paul's writings, right? The body is made of different parts, right? But each
Mhm.
part plays a vital role in how the body moves.
Mhm.
And it's like, yeah, each one has its own purpose, right? Like the nose is gonna smell, but the ears are gonna hear
Mhm.
and like that thing. And they have their different jobs because of like life experience and everything else that they've been through. They have their own giftings and talents, their own
Mhm.
wisdom, and they're meant to use it for the betterment of the body of Messiah,
Mhm.
to be in awareness, right? So there's also that idea with it, kind of going forward with it as well.
Mhm.
Um, but then, like, kind of hitting the Joshua point too. All of this comes from a fear of Yah,
Mhm.
and from that fear of Yah, like, work out your salvation with fear and trembling.
Mhm.
Um, you
Well, and
start.
what's fascinating is Joshua saw the same things everybody else did.
Mm-hmm.
So like he passed through the Red Sea. He walked with Yah in the wilderness. Like he went through all the same things, saw all the same things, saw um, the the power of Yah, saw his judgment, saw his blessing, um, saw all of it. He saw the same things that the 12 spies saw. Um, and it's just him and Caleb who have the reaction that they do. Um, and how many times in life are we going through same circumstances that somebody else is going through, and we'll have different reactions than them. Just find that noteworthy that just because you're both walking the same path, are you going to have the same reaction that somebody else does? And so that boils down to like, who do you fear? Where's your hope and your trust? See, Dana, most people are not willing to work out their lives with the mirror of Yah's word. They want a pastor or a teacher or a friend or a church to do it. Yeah, that's a good point, Dana. There's a lot of people who want someone else to do it for them. I'd say that's the danger in outsourcing your faith to somebody else.
Well, we kind of live in a world now where people are programmed or raised to put their trust in other people.
Hmm.
Like if something breaks, you're gonna call a plumber.
Yeah. Well,
Car breaks, you're gonna. I'm using that as what, like
no,
analogy,
no, and I'm not
but
I'm not going against that. My brain's like, so chasing that because I think you were going here. Um, we default to the people who we trust know more than us, and I don't know, like if you have someone who doesn't have a hunger to study Yah's word, they they tend to just want the quick answer and ask somebody who seems to have their ducks in a row. So, uh, and then a lot of times they just trust the answer that they're given, which I don't think there's anything wrong with asking questions of people who we know and trust.
well,
Um,
there's a place for that,
yeah.
you know.
Um, and I also understand that um, the ability to study something going deeper is a skill. Um, it's not a natural talent that just comes to people. I mean, some people are better at it than others, but the ability to study things and have discernment and wisdom in that is a skill, and you only get better at a skill by practicing. And um, that also comes with having an area of familiarity of Scripture. So being able to know vaguely where to go looking for something. Um, how do we get that? That comes with dwell time. That comes with reading passages that you just don't naturally want to go to. You have people who have a default like 5 or 6 passages in Scripture that they read all the time. It's like, okay, let's branch out a little bit and actually not be afraid of opening the book of Deuteronomy and reading it. Let's actually not be afraid of the book of Leviticus. Open it up and read it. Hey, I know some of those minor prophets have some names that are a little hard to pronounce, but there is some real gold in there. Let's open up and start just reading. And even if you don't think this applies to you, because it's like, man, this is just weird, and it's talking about some people who are like off in the middle of nowhere, and like, how does this apply to modern life? It's like, let's just keep reading, um, because then you're gonna come to a section of Scripture that you're more familiar with, and then all of a sudden, hey, wait a second, they said something, and I remember seeing that back in this obscure book back here that I didn't pay that much attention to. And that's part of the reason why I keep saying, bro, there's new stuff in this book every time I open it. Um, and it's just a lot of that comes with dwell time. And there's good tools out there for studying. I really like doing some obscure deep dives on things that people are like, why is this important? Um, because sometimes chasing rabbits, you find gold. That's what I think, at least.
For sure, for sure. That's the beautiful thing about this, right? If we could just understand this book like any other book, and read it once and just get it, like, what would be the point? And so the fact that we can pick this up and read the same thing for the 6 millionth time and be like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
what is that? Like, um,
And by the way, shalom and good morning to Guy and Full Spectrum Dominant Survival of the Wisest. Your your name just rolls off the tongue like Guy's does, by the way. Well, good morning and shalom to you guys. Sorry, Hoot, I interrupted you.
no, you're good. I'm also finding it interesting that wisdom here in Proverbs 8 is established before the earth was even created,
Hmm.
man was created, like all of this. It was always in the beginning with him. It was the Torah, right? And now
Hmm.
we go to John 1. For he was in the beginning.
Hmm.
Like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with Yah, and the Word was Yah.
Yeah.
And Yeshua was with him in the beginning. Like the very first thing he created was his Word, the Torah, which was
Hmm.
Yeshua. Yeah, bunch of tie-ins. It's super cool. Um, when you describe this circle on the face of the deep,
So,
I don't even know what that means, bro.
uh, I'm not going to pretend that I have full knowledge on that. Uh, I've heard that it's an expression.
It probably
I've
is.
heard that it is a direct, like, when basically Yahweh formed the earth, when he like made its shape. Um, the I've heard one person mention, like, if you're going to go with the pottery analogy, it's like when he's taking the raw clay, and beginning to do like a base formation of it. Um, the uh, the flat earthers are going to tell you it's when he made it into a flat disk. The globers are going to tell you that it's like when he um, like when he drew the boundary lines for the ocean versus the land. Um, and I don't have full knowledge on it, so I'm not gonna pretend to overstep. I do lean towards it was probably an expression, but oh, Bertrand's here. Shalom.
Bertrand, Shalom.
If we're sticking in that 22 through 30-ish section, and we're going back to creation, uh, what jumps in my mind, and I'm in Genesis, so I guess page 1. But 1:4, and Elohim saw that the light was good, and he separated the light from darkness. Um, and then let's see, verse. There's another one where he calls everything good. Verse 10, and Elohim called the dry land earth, and the collection of the waters he called seas, and Elohim saw that it was good. And then let's see. Verse 18, they're to rule over the day and over the night and separate the light from the darkness, and Elohim saw that it was good. And then what verse? 21, Elohim created great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the waters teemed according to their kind, and every winged bird according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. And then verse 25. Elohim made the beasts of the earth according to their kind, livestock according to its kind, and all that creep on the earth according to its kind. And Elohim saw that it was good. Um, there's one more I know there is. Uh, 31, Elohim saw that all he had made, and see, it was very good. And there came to be evening and morning of the 6th day. So he keeps making stuff, and he sees that it's good. I find that really, really cool, pairing up that Yahweh looking at his creation and declaring that it's good, seeing that it is good, lined up with the tie that wisdom is with him in the beginning, all the way through. That what is good and what is wise is right there.
Good morning, Tech. How are you, bro?
Shalom.
Yeah,
I am not proud of like tech. Oh, duh. The encouraging community. I'm not proud of how long that took in my brain. I was like, tech. What? Oh.
You gotta shorten it up.
Well, I keep calling him TEC in the chats when we are shouting shalom at each other. It's like duh. But I always TEC. I'm like, oh, tech.
Yeah, I don't know. I just when I see him now, I just see TEC like capital letters.
Yeah.
No. So that's
Yeah,
obviously like tech.
I say the letters instead of combining them into a word, but
Oh, man, it's tech.
well, at least I'm not Tango Echo Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah. Proverbs 8, jumping back. Verse 10 brings up silver and gold. Um, verse 19 brings up silver and gold. Are there any other verses that talk about that? Because I know there's
In
some things that like
general,
hit on riches. Hit on we got rubies in verse 11.
well, you definitely see that like playing out throughout the Proverbs.
Yeah, it's but either
I
like
think of,
gemstones or precious metals. I see for sure two verses that talk about it. Um, that's all I see off the top of my head with a quick scan. But I find that interesting comparing wisdom and wealth, um, and saying that the wisdom is better than the money, um, but also that like someone who is wise, um, that the likelihood that they do well is there. That doesn't mean that like yeah, it doesn't call you to a life where you're not gonna have everything. Because I think there are seasons where he will put us through not being financially okay, so that way we trust him more. But then there are also like, are we not financially okay because of our own poor decisions? So there is the balance of that.
mhm.
Because I put it to early stages in a marriage. Usually, you're not financially well off when that happens, um, and all you have is each other. And so that deepens and strengthens a marriage in a lot of cases. I mean, it can be, the Thunderdome, because I can tell you that especially early in a marriage, money is usually like a big topic of discussion, if not contention. Uh, but in a lot of cases, it's like, hey, we were broke, we had nothing but each other, and we had everything because we had each other. And I like to think about when Israel's in the wilderness and they had nothing but Yahweh and they had everything they needed. Um, and it's learning to trust Him when it's hard. It's learning to love each other when it's hard. Um, it goes hand in hand, um, and learning to still love each other when you have other things to chase after. It's learning to still love Yahweh when He has provided you with everything that you needed and blessed you richly. Do you still have hope and trust in Him or not? Um, and that the financial blessing is just that, a blessing. And so, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to use it wisely, or are you gonna let it run away and take you with it? Because it still
Promoted
talks
that
about.
marriage you, you
Say
beautiful
again.
people. Promoted Matt Bear showed up.
Yeah. Shalom
Um,
Kermode, Shalom Matt Bear. Good to see you guys.
I think that gets brought up so much, especially in
Hmm.
Proverbs, because like even all the way to Yeshua, like he's basically
Hmm.
saying the same thing. You cannot serve two masters. You
Hmm.
cannot serve King and Mammon, which is referred to as like money, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's this continued problem throughout generation. I mean, we still have this problem today.
Mm.
And I would submit, like, what you focus on the most is what you end up worshiping,
Mm.
right? And if your focus is on money, which the enemy will use that, right?
Mm.
He will allow your thoughts to go that way when you're financially unstable in a time or
Mm.
whatever. That becomes your main focus. And now you're putting way more attention on that than you are your own creator.
Mm.
And then you start to build this lack of trust and everything else. And it becomes this form of worship. Therefore, like, you cannot serve two masters, right? So,
Mm.
like, intentionally, so that we be cautious with that.
Mm.
Because it's like, and you know, I talk to people all the time with this kind of idea. It's like, what does it matter anyways? We don't own anything.
Mm.
We don't even own ourselves. Our life is not our own.
Yeah.
We've been bought and paid for with a price. So with that, what we ought to be talking about is possession and what that
Mm.
entails. See, we've been given stewardship over stuff because
Mm.
Yah sees fit that we have in our possession these things He already had.
Mm.
It's like this: Yah owns everything. All right, He created it.
Mm.
All that gold we dig up out of the earth, all the fossil fuels, the paper that we print. Where did that come from? Like,
Mm.
He made it all, and as he has all these assets within his hands, he's like,
Mm.
I think Tulsi over here would do well with these sets of assets. And he hands
Mm.
you what he's like, you know, Hooter over here, like, he'd be good with these things. And his intention with that is he sees
Mm.
your works and he knows that it's within you the capability. That doesn't mean you can't choose to screw
Mm.
it all up, right? But he has the understanding of your capability within you to take what he has given you to use it for his good because we're commanded to go be a light, right?
Mm.
So a quick example of how I've tried to apply this times before is like I've always tried to have some form of cash on hand with me at all times
Mm.
so that, like, because it's really hard to, or I shouldn't say it's hard, but it's a different circumstance to bless people on the fly with no, tangible physical money, right? If you really needed to.
Mm.
uh, and that's just like an example of many. But it's like what we should really be talking about is like, why did Yah allow us to have what we have?
Mm.
And that right there should take your focus away from, because it's super easy in the preparedness space too. Like, you get so caught up in all these cool guns and gadgets and like all these toys, and it's like,
Mm.
what good does any of that do when you're not being good to yourself or anybody else? And like, would you not rather have those tools and capabilities so that you can be a light in a chaotic situation?
Mm.
That's all I care to have any of those things for, anyways. You know, like, you know what I don't want to be? Some cool guy fighting a war that has nothing to do with me over there.
Mm.
That serves no good purpose in my eyes. I'm not
Yeah,
saying that
no.
any people are bad. They're not. Those are probably really good people, and most of them probably really do believe they're doing something good, and they probably are. There's probably
Mm.
still evil over there, but anyways,
No,
without
you're
digging
good.
far into that, it's like we are given what we are given
Mm.
in this money. Like, also, let's talk about, like, when you are in those times where, hey, money's tight, this
Mm.
is difficult. Like, that is a real struggle, and that is, like, we are not going to take anything away from that. But maybe we're meant to be built up in trust in those times,
Mm.
right? Like, Y'all's y'all's got a way through. You think he doesn't know?
Mhm.
Guys, dang it. Hunter doesn't have enough money today. What is he gonna do? I didn't think about this.
No.
Oh, he
Oh
knows.
gosh, I forgot. No, that doesn't happen.
What day is
So
it? Tuesday? Huh?
so I work with tools, so that um, this analogy is going to be, uh, I guess, those of you who either have or do work with tools. Um, this is probably going to resonate with you. Uh, so I was in a training program, and this this dude who was in my class for the better part of 2 years, um, he was just very quiet. He probably said 12 words the entire time that I knew him. When he spoke, everybody stopped what they were doing to listen, because it was so rare, and whatever he would say would be very profound. Um, and he was very, very good at watching what other people were doing and anticipating what their needs would be 3 to 5 steps down the road. Uh, and I was working on an engine, and I was struggling. Um, and I don't remember if it was a bolt that just was not even aligning properly so that way you could begin to thread it, or if it was a stubborn part that was just beaten over time, and so it just didn't fit in the parameters that it was originally going to fit into. And this was on a training device, so it's not like it was something that was gonna, go out and hurt somebody. It was just mostly the practice of taking it apart and putting it back together. Um, and this dude sees me struggling, uh, and he walks up and sets um, a spanner wrench on the table next to me, and he's just like, "You will need this when the time comes," and walks away. And I'm like, "Okay, well, I don't need it right now, so I'm just gonna leave that there." And I get my part installed. I get whatever, if it was a bolt or whatever, appropriately aligned finally and threaded in there and torqued. Um, and I was like, "Man, I really need a spanner wrench now." And I look down and I'm just like, "Oh, thanks. It was there the whole time, and it was there before I needed it. Um, and thank you for bringing that to me." Um, Oftentimes we are struggling with something, and there are things that are either already in our possession, or things that come our way, that are probably not what we need in that struggle. But we are so focused on the struggle that we forget about what we've already been blessed with. And that's something that moment was a big reminder of that. That I have already been provided with what I need, even for a future problem that I haven't even thought about encountering yet. Uh, I've already been provided with everything that I need. Uh, it's just I have to realize that it's there, and I have to be willing to, oh, it is here, and actually use it. And then it sure would be nice if I would acknowledge the person who provided that to me. Like, thank you so much. Like, thank you for seeing my struggle and sending the caravan before I ever even knew I needed the caravan. Um, so that it's like it's already blessed me with it. Probably be a good idea if number one, I tell him thank you and then actually use what he's given me. So
Yeah, and like, how blessed are we that dad would even care to,
mhm.
like, he's thinking about us,
Yeah,
in
it's
that
like you,
regard.
you will need this when the time comes. It's like, what? Oh my gosh, thank you. Like, now I knew what he meant. Um, and I'm shifting gears on this a little bit. I found this one, or this one came to mind earlier, and I went back and found where it was. Because you brought up the law of first mention, um, and back in Proverbs, because they're not converbs, they're proverbs. Um, we mentioned gold um, in 2 verses.
Yeah.
You brought up the law of first mention. Where's the first place that gold is mentioned in Scripture?
I don't know.
It's in Genesis.
No.
It's in chapter 2, um, and it's a very minor mention, but um, Genesis 2:11, uh, and just context. Yah has created
Yeah.
Adam and Eve, and he's then like, okay, we're gonna put them somewhere special, um, and he's making the garden, and he puts the garden in between these rivers in verse 11, and the name of the first is the Pishon. It is the one surrounding the entire land of Hawal, where there is gold. So there's gold in the midst of the garden that Yah is creating, and it's just in the ground. And I doubt Adam and Eve were mining for gold because I don't think they had any need for it. Um, but something that Yah provided for his people when he made the earth. Um, and he's putting quite literally paradise on earth. And oh, yeah, by the way, there's a whole lot of gold in that ground over there. There's gold up in them hills, boys. That's where my brain goes. Um, Tying that with the wisdom that's with Yah in the beginning, um, and wisdom is better than gold. Wisdom is better than fine gold. It's better than silver. It's better than rubies. Um, Adam and Eve walked with Yah in a place where there was gold in the ground. And what's better? They were walking with Yah. Like they had no need for that gold. So we could probably take that deeper if we wanted to, but um, walking with Yah every day, living with Him, and there's gold 3 feet away, and who cares? Like just mentioning that. See if we can actually go back
Fruit
to
is
Proverbs
better
8.
than gold and fine gold, and increase in choice silver. Yeah, man.
What else you got?
Well, in that verse, I saw Shalom stone, and I don't know, it was intriguing. Because I know I've seen that before.
Elaborate a little bit.
So, back in Genesis 2,
Mm-hmm.
after verse 11, verse 12, and the gold of that land is good, uh, and Delium is there, and the Shalom stone. And what's interesting is like here in Exodus 25, I think this is the building of the garments. Yeah, the garments of the priests, maybe.
Hmm.
It says the contribution you take up from them gold and silver and bronze and blue and purple and scarlet material and fine linen and goat's hair and ram skins dyed red, and fine
Mhm.
leather, acacia wood, oil for the light, spices for the anointing oil, and sweet incense, shoham stones, and stones to be set in the shoulder garments and in the breastplate. And they shall make me a set apart place, and I shall dwell in their midst.
Mhm.
So, like, they're taking up these offerings from the people, or contribution rather, to build the tabernacle and set apart the priesthood.
Mhm.
And the shoham stones placed into the breastplate and the shoulder garments of the
Yeah,
priests.
aren't those aren't those gemstones basically? Just
Yeah, something like that. And there was like several different colors, I think. But
mhm.
it
Like one
is
specifically for each tribe.
that's super interesting because these are like set apart people
Mhm.
put in service to Yah at the tabernacle, wearing set apart garments. The big
Mhm.
ordeal. And out of the rivers of Eden, one of them,
Mhm.
there's like this super awesome gold, which gold was also used a lot in the tabernacle as well.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I know a lot of commentators talk about how the tabernacle was like Garden of Eden imagery. Um,
yeah,
and I
that's
mean
what I'm
also
seeing.
in line with what they saw in heaven. So like there's just
And then like
it's where heaven and earth collide. So
another random thought I just had, and this is like a little unrelated, but like the whole room and the tomb thing.
yeah,
These two like lighting rocks. It's like I
yeah.
don't know. Um,
The
so
the way I have always thought of the Urim and the Thummim uh, is it's a way for the priest to um, have an impartial answer on something. And so I've always treated it as like flipping a coin. Um,
yep,
that's the
casting.
mentally how I've always thought of it, and I don't know that that's like correct, but that's how my puny brain comprehends it.
Well, it's like because I remember one time I was kind of looking into casting lots. Like, what is that? You know,
Hmm.
like I just didn't like have a full grasp of it,
Hmm.
and that's what I came up with is like the best way I can understand it. Like for us today, is like the flipping of a coin or
Drawing straws,
drawing straws, rock paper scissors, like that kind of thing.
Rochambeau. No one
Yeah,
does that anymore.
no. Um, so
But
yeah,
yeah,
that's
it's
interesting.
the way I've always thought of it is it's an impartial decider. Um,
And then like think of that, and then you think of like okay, so like those Roman soldiers were like casting. Like imagine you were
mhm.
watching the crucifixion of your Messiah, and there's
Mhm.
these two a-holes down there who are like literally flipping a coin to see who gets his garments. Like,
Yeah.
isn't that infuriating, dude? Or
Mm.
like they're just sitting there playing rock paper scissors. Like,
Yeah.
dude,
Like, hey, this is too
you're
valuable to rip. So like one of us gets it. So which one of us is gonna get it?
Anyways,
Like to be that I guess numb to death that you're quite literally gambling over somebody else's clothing while they're dying.
well, okay, so here's the thing for those guys. Like, let's think about it in context. That was definitely not the first guy. Maybe even that day that those
No,
dudes
probably
went up
not.
on stage. Right? They had been doing that long before Yeshua was put up there.
Mhm.
Um, they didn't grasp who that guy was. But then like the blood and water came out and all that, and then that the
Mhm.
one that pierced his side was like, oh well, truly that was the son of Elohim. Like, poor
Mhm.
man, stay. But and they're mocking him all the time, putting a crown of thorns on his head, and they're calling him the king of the Yehudim,
Mhm.
and all this. Like they were having a game with him, and they they had no clue.
Mhm.
It's not trying to call them right in the situation,
Mhm.
obviously, but like, you know, I, trying to better understand, the context here. Like, I
Mhm.
can't say that I wouldn't be any better if I was a Roman soldier in those days,
Yeah. Well,
right?
how often have we missed, like, he was right in front of us, and how often have we missed him for that? I mean, oh, let's see. Okay. Um, I will close this out with 1 Corinthians 6. Should any of you, holding a matter against another, go to be judged before the unrighteous, and not before the set apart ones? Do you not know that the set apart ones shall judge the world? And if the world is judged by you, are you unworthy to judge the smaller matters, or the smallest matters? Do you not know that we shall judge messengers? How much more matters of this life? If then you truly have judgment of this life, do you appoint them as judges who are least esteemed by the assembly? I say this to your shame. Is it so that there is no wise one among you, not even one who shall be able to judge between his brothers? But brother against brother goes to be judged, and before unbelievers. Already then there is a failure with you, that you have lawsuits among you. Why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be cheated? But you yourselves do wrong and cheat, and that your brothers. Do you not know that the unrighteous shall not inherit the reign of Elohim? Do not be deceived, neither those who whore, nor idolaters, nor adulterers, nor effeminate, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor greedy of gain, nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers shall inherit the reign of Elohim. Did I cut out on that one?
No, you're good.
Okay. My
Shalom,
phone told
Paul.
me my phone told me I'm low on battery. And Shalom Palmetto Paratrooper, I'm glad to see you. Nor drunkards, nor revilers, nor swindlers shall inherit the reign of Elohim. Verse 11 that everybody seems to skip out on. And such were some of you, but you were washed, you were set apart, but you were declared right in the name of the Master Yeshua and by the Spirit of Elohim. All is permitted me, but not all do profit. All is permitted me, but I shall not be under the authority of any. So where I'm going with that is that there is a whole slew of us who have former lives before following Yahweh. And we were egregious sinners who were separated from him, who were far, far away from his grace. And looking back, we see how horrible we used to be. And we see those Roman soldiers who are literally gambling over his clothes at the moment of his death. And we used to be that too. And we like to look down on, and I'm not saying you, I'm just saying like in general, we like to look down on like, oh man, look at these people who missed it. Look at those people who are walking with you out in the wilderness, and he was right there with them, and like they keep, abandoning him, keep running away from him. Um, verse 11 out of 1 Corinthians 6. And such were some of you. Um, I just take that as a huge, huge reminder from Paul of like, okay, yeah, I was that way too. Yes, sir. Rebuke received. And I'm not saying that as a rebuke to you. I'm saying that in general, um, of we used to be that way too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I find that so cool that Yeshua was looking down, seeing people gambling over his clothes. He was looking down, seeing people who were literally
Indeed.
mocking him that, you know, 3 days earlier were listening intently to his sermons. Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do.
Yeah. I was just about to say something too. Uh, um, I don't know. It's left me.
No, you're good.
um, weird.
You're good. But yeah, that verse comes to mind, in
Oh,
what you were saying. I think that, um, yeah, at one point in my life, yeah, I probably would have been gambling over Yeshua's clothes too.
yeah. Yeah. No, what I was gonna say was this walk in faith that we have
Mhm.
is meant to be a humbling journey. Because that's the whole point. He's got to take us from where we were
Mhm.
to where he needs us to be, and it takes a lot of humility and humbleness. So I mean, the
Mhm.
fact that we can read the word and be humbled like that. Yeah, like today they would have sold his garments on eBay on
Yep,
100%.
100%.
Like, yeah, like we would have been no different. But praise God, like he still saw through that.
Yeah.
And then like even after, how many Gentiles came to believe,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And then even after that, as like through Acts and as the
Mhm.
apostles were going out and starting, to do that, like
Mhm.
the Great Commission. Like how many more? Like what was it like?
Mhm.
At one point there was 5,000 baptized.
Yeah.
I think Peter baptized, and then there was a couple thousand more after that,
Mhm.
like Gentiles. So like as shitty as it was, like
Yeah.
it also needed to happen for those other things to transpire as well.
Mhm.
Like y'all's in it for the long game.
Yeah.
We're so short minded, I think, that we forget that. Like we can't really play the long game unless you have this word, obviously.
Yeah.
But like our lives are so minuscule, at least here on earth, like we are constrained by the idea of time.
Mhm.
And so we get very short minded. But like
Mhm.
he's like, oh dude, I know what's gonna happen. He knew all of these things to the very end, not not the end, but how his son would return from like
Mhm.
day one creation, and it's like we can't do that. We can't fathom what that looks like.
Mhm. You right, bro?
Yeah, I had an itch in my leg, so
Oh yeah.
just getting it.
Well, as long as it's not like your luggable Lou that you had off in the corner the other day when your parakeet was chirping, then you'll be okay.
Well, we've since lost the parrot, and I don't know what the local Lou is right now.
Ugh.
So I don't know if we'll see a return of that. But
So was this like Dumb and Dumber where they sold the dead bird to the blind kid? Get some extra cash for the move.
yeah, except that like it wasn't sold; it was like given to one of T's family members. Like, here, have
Huh.
this like really
Squeaky fan.
yeah. Just need a WD-40, man.
Yeah.
But I know Heather was so upset. It was funny.
Hmm. All right. Anyway, I will pray us out. And Father, yeah, thank you so much for bringing us all together. Thank you for the day of prep that we get to get our ducks in a row before we just have this awesome period of Shabbat to rest and to grow closer to you and to spend time with our families and to just catch our breaths. And thank you for who you are. Thank you for the many, many times where you have extended so much grace to us that when we were just wallowing in our sin, that you still love us. Thank you for giving us an opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to repent, to chase after you. Father God, I just pray that you give us a hunger for your word and to apply that word to our life. Father God, we thank you that wisdom was with you in the beginning. We thank you that you knew what you were doing from the very, very start, even though there's things that just don't make sense to us. We know that you're in control and that your ways are better than ours. Thank you for the gift of Yeshua. Thank you for his death, his burial, his resurrection. Thank you for the opportunity of new life in you. Yeah, just teach us not to squander it. Help us to give freely the way you have given to us. Help us to pour into other people around us. Father, yeah, we know people that you have placed in our lives that don't know you. Teach us to be the light. In your name. Amen. Oh, take your Bible with you.
I'm glad we could be there with you, Paul.
Yeah, happy to. Happy to. Take your Bible with you. Pray with somebody today. Go do hard things.
All right,
Shalom.
love all. Shalom.